stop your scrolling, drop whatever you are doing, and listen to me very carefully, because the global tennis internet has officially lost its absolute collective mind. There is a highly contagious, deeply embarrassing, and entirely delusional psychological virus currently infecting the absolute darkest, most irrational corners of social media right now. It is being aggressively fueled by a deeply passionate, fiercely loyal, but completely uneducated, casual fan base that simply cannot emotionally accept the harsh, unyielding, and brutal reality of elite professional sports. Welcome back, my beautiful drama seekers and baseline junkies, to Courtside Classic. I am your host, Mira, and I am here to serve you the unvarnished, piping hot tea. We are the premier destination on the entire internet for the raw, unapologetic, and completely unfiltered truth behind the ruthless business, the agonizing locker room psychology, and the elite tactical biomechanics of the WTA Tour. Grab a seat, because today we are actively, violently dropping the absolute hammer of reality on one of the most absurd, mathematically impossible, and entirely fabricated conspiracy theories that has ever plagued the modern tennis landscape. Following the completely staggering, heartbreaking collapse of the Philippines' global sensation, Alexandra Ayala, against the fiercely aggressive 2017 French Open champion, Jelena Ostapenko, at the Linz Open, a massive, highly coordinated, and completely delusional internet movement has taken over. Massive social media accounts, fan pages, and heavily biased forums are actively, loudly claiming that the WTA is currently investigating the match. They are spreading the wild fantasy that, due to extreme crowd hindrance and alleged unsportsmanlike conduct from Ostapenko, this dramatic round of 16 showdown is miraculously going to be officially replayed. Let us be completely, undeniably, and entirely crystal clear right now before we go any further. That rumor is absolute, unmitigated, and entirely pathetic garbage. There is absolutely 0% chance, zero mathematical probability, and zero bureaucratic precedent for this match to ever be replayed. Today, we are going to aggressively tear apart the completely archaic but entirely rigid WTA rulebook. We are going to expose the absolute truth behind Ostapenko's highly publicized spectator confrontation. And, perhaps most importantly, we are going to deliver a massive, deeply uncomfortable reality check to a fan base that is desperately begging for a corporate bailout instead of demanding athletic accountability from their favorite player. I know this might hurt some feelings, but as I always say, my personal opinion is that the truth is far more valuable than a comforting lie. If you want to survive the absolute meat grinder that is professional tennis, you cannot hide behind internet petitions. Buckle up, hit that subscribe button to support the absolute only channel delivering the undisputed truth, turn on your notifications, and let us ruthlessly dissect the absolute anatomy of the greatest fan delusion of the 2026 season. To truly, deeply comprehend the sheer, staggering magnitude of the absolute absurdity driving these match replay rumors, you have to meticulously analyze the incredibly dark, suffocating, and entirely unforgiving legal framework of the Women's Tennis Association. The traditional sports media loves to generate cheap clicks by pretending that the WTA is a completely fluid, deeply empathetic organization that actively cares about the emotional feelings of rising superstars. They paint this picture of a governing body that will swoop in like a fairy godmother to right every perceived wrong. But let me tell you the cold, hard, absolutely ruthless reality of global sports business. The WTA operates under a highly rigid, deeply bureaucratic, and utterly uncompromising set of legal statutes. In the entire multi-decade history of the professional tennis tour, a completed match has absolutely never, ever been officially overturned, erased from the record books, or mathematically replayed simply because a player was heavily distracted by the crowd, or because an opponent engaged in a highly intense, prolonged argument with the chair umpire. It just does not happen. Matches are not replayed because of perceived momentum shifts. Matches are not replayed because a loud, deeply obnoxious fan sitting in the Austrian front row actively yelled during a critical second serve. The casual internet fan base is aggressively creating highly dramatized, fictional legal loopholes that simply do not exist in the actual physical world of professional tennis. When the chair umpire officially calls game, set, match, and the two athletes physically approach the net to conduct the final handshake, the mathematical result is permanently, undeniably etched into the immortal history books in thick black ink. Jelena Ostapenko won that tennis match. The scoreline reads 4-6, 7-5 in her favor. The ranking points have been officially awarded. The prize money has been officially allocated to her bank account. Ostapenko has already physically packed her massive designer tennis bags and moved on to the quarterfinals. The idea that a massive billion-dollar corporate entity like the WTA would completely halt a highly scheduled, internationally televised tournament to force two elite athletes back onto the crushed red clay to replay a match because the internet is angry is an absolute, unmitigated fairy tale. It shows a profound misunderstanding of how the sport actually functions. You cannot hit the reset button in real life just because your favorite player had a catastrophic mental lapse. We absolutely must aggressively dive into the elite tactical and psychological reality of the specific incident that actively triggered this massive wave of global internet delusion. The casual fan base is aggressively pointing their fingers directly at the highly chaotic, entirely volatile moment in the second set. Let's set the scene. Jelena Ostapenko is completely facing down a terrifying, seemingly insurmountable 5-1 deficit. She is staring right over the edge of the cliff. Instead of quietly accepting defeat, she actively engages in a massive, highly visible verbal altercation with a disruptive spectator in the Austrian crowd. The deeply passionate, highly emotional fans of Alexandra Ayala are loudly claiming that Ostapenko actively, illegally utilized this specific confrontation as an unearned medical timeout. They are screaming from the digital rooftops that she essentially manufactured a fake, completely artificial delay of game to entirely ice out the young Filipina prodigy and completely shatter her serving rhythm. They claim this is undeniable proof of illegal gamesmanship that explicitly warrants a full match replay. But listen to me, and listen to me closely. When you completely strip away the loud, emotional bias and look directly at the cold, hard, psychological topography of the sport, you realize that Ostapenko did absolutely nothing illegal. Not a single rule was broken. Complaining to the chair umpire about a legitimate fan hindrance is entirely within the absolute legal rights of any professional player on the tour. The umpire physically permitted the delay, actively managed the crowd interaction, and officially resumed play within the legal parameters of the sport. Was it highly chaotic? Absolutely, it was a circus. Was it incredibly frustrating for Ayala? Without a single shadow of a doubt, I would be furious if I were in her shoes. But, in my personal opinion, it was absolutely not a violation of the fundamental rules of tennis that would ever, in a million years, mathematically justify a replay. Ostapenko simply recognized a completely hostile environmental variable, actively brought it to the absolute forefront of the match, and utilized the resulting chaos to entirely reset her own chaotic brain. It was not a cheat code. It was the brutal, entirely legal reality of top-tier professional sports. This is what veterans do. When the ship is sinking, they look for any possible way to plug the hole, even if it means throwing a tantrum and completely derailing the elegant flow of the match. This massive, highly lucrative tactical reality brings us directly to the absolute, undeniable, suffocating concept of elite psychological warfare, which is precisely what the casual fan base completely fails to understand. When you are actively competing at the absolute highest echelons of the WTA Tour against former Grand Slam champions, you are not just playing a physical game of hitting a fuzzy yellow ball over a net. This is not a friendly hit at your local country club. You are actively engaging in incredibly dark, isolated, and highly volatile psychological combat. Elite, battle-hardened veterans like Jelena Ostapenko have spent their entire lives mastering the absolute dark arts of momentum manipulation. They actively, ruthlessly weaponize the environment. They weaponize the crowd. They weaponize the specific timing of their towel breaks. They weaponize their emotional outbursts to completely change the geometric temperature of the arena. Alexandra Iella was actively dominating the match. She was holding a massive, undeniable 5-1 lead, completely dictating the baseline rallies with her heavy, beautiful, left-handed Rafa Nadal Academy topspin. She was putting on a clinic. She had her opponent entirely pinned to the absolute floor. But the exact millisecond Ostapenko initiated that highly disruptive delay, Iella's pristine, machine-like concentration completely and violently shattered. It was like watching a beautiful stained glass window shatter into a million pieces. The brutal, unforgiving lesson here is not that Ostapenko cheated and the match should be replayed. The brutal lesson, and this is the part that fans absolutely hate to hear, is that Alexandra Iella completely failed to mentally survive the chaos. A true, immortal, generational champion absolutely must possess the terrifying, cold-blooded killer instinct to completely ignore the circus happening on the other side of the net. They have to be able to block out the screaming fans, the arguing opponent, the umpire's warnings, walk directly up to the service line, bounce the ball, and violently serve the match out. Iella allowed the external, uncontrollable variables to actively seep into her own biomechanical execution. It resulted in a completely catastrophic 0% win rate on her second serve down the stretch, and an absolute barrage of broken service games. She stopped trusting her mechanics, she started guiding the ball instead of hitting it, and the loss was entirely mathematically dictated by a failure of mental execution, not a failure of the rulebook. But the absolute most dangerous, highly toxic aspect of these fabricated match replay rumors is the profound, deeply terrifying psychological damage it actively threatens to inflict upon Alexandra Iella's own long-term athletic development. This is what truly breaks my heart, when a fiercely passionate, completely devoted fan base aggressively surrounds a young 20-year-old athlete with massive, comforting excuses. They are actively poisoning her ultimate potential. If the casual internet echo chamber successfully convinces Alla and her elite coaching staff that she was entirely robbed, that the match was fundamentally unfair, and that she somehow deserves a bureaucratic bailout, they completely strip away her athletic accountability. Growth, absolute biomechanical evolution, and terrifying mental fortitude are exclusively forged in the incredibly dark, highly agonizing fires of massive, heartbreaking defeat. Let me say that again. You only learn how to win the big ones by choking the big ones first. Iella absolutely needs to feel the full, crushing, completely unmitigated weight of blowing a 5-1 lead to a Grand Slam champion. She needs to physically taste the bitter disappointment in her mouth. She needs to look directly into the cold, hard mirror in her hotel room and absolutely acknowledge that when the ultimate terrifying pressure of closing out a top-tier opponent presented itself, her second serve completely evaporated, and her killer instinct violently failed her. The elite, highly specialized minds at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca do not build immortal champions by filing completely useless internet petitions for match replays. Let me assure you, Tony Nadal is not logging onto Twitter to complain about the umpire. They build champions by aggressively marching directly back onto the practice court the very next morning, completely breaking down the flawed mechanics, and spending 1,000 agonizing hours meticulously engineering a highly weaponized second serve that will never, ever break down under pressure again. The victim mentality is the absolute, undeniable death of greatness. The fans who are aggressively pushing this ridiculous replay rumor are, ironically, actively attempting to turn a future global titan into a highly fragile, completely protected victim. So, let us shut this narrative down once and for all. The clock is officially, permanently stopped in Linz. The massive alarm bells have completely ceased ringing, and the absolute reality of the situation is written in undeniable stone. We at Courtside Classic are actively, confidently calling out the entire global tennis internet right now, and we are absolutely not backing down from this massive reality check. The match between Alexandra Iella and Jelena Ostapenko is completely, entirely, and permanently over. There will be absolutely no replay. There will be absolutely no magical corporate intervention from the WTA. The paradigm of global women's tennis requires absolute, unyielding mental toughness, and the Filipina superstar just received the ultimate most heavily brutal education of her entire professional career. Defeating players like Jelena Ostapenko on the heavy European clay is not just about raw power or pretty ground strokes. It is about completely surviving the absolute darkest, most chaotic psychological warfare imaginable. Ayala has officially felt the terrifying velocity of a Grand Slam champion's desperate comeback, and if she is the superstar I truly believe she is going to actively use this massive devastation as high-octane rocket fuel for her absolute ascension. The revolution has absolutely not been canceled by an Austrian spectator or an umpire's call. It has simply been aggressively tested in the absolute deepest, most treacherous waters of the sport. Ensure you are permanently subscribed to Courtside Classic right now, as we continue to ruthlessly document the greatest athletic ascension in modern tennis history. We will be right here to analyze every single massive, undeniable reality check on the global stage. Do you agree with me? Do you think the fans need to back off and let her learn from this brutal loss? Or are you still holding on to the fantasy of a replay? Drop a comment down below and let me know your thoughts. I read every single one. Smash that like button, keep your rackets tight and your mental game tighter, and I will see you all in the very next episode.